The TasCast Show. I'm Tassos Paradakis, and I talk to entertain myself and yourself, teach you myself and yourself, and have a good time all together. Enjoy the show. Hello. Welcome to the TasCast Show, episode 44. Here I talk about entrepreneurship, data science, veganism, comedy, and occasionally, especially when I have guests, about some motivation and personal development. Now, let's move on with the story and a topic of the day. So, today I'm going to talk about data science again. Today is going to be the talk I promised on Monday about GDPR. And I hope you guys enjoy it. Before I move into that topic, just a small update on mentality. I had a conversation earlier on with someone, and I got inspired to just share these parts of the conversation. When I talk to people, sometimes I come up with some interesting ideas, and I think it's good to share with people. And this idea from today basically suggests, someone was asking me, so what are you studying, man? I was just reading on machine learning, and I was doing some statistics in order to figure out something that's called the cost function. For you who are familiar, and he was like, oh no, I cannot do any statistics or math or any calculations like that. And I'm like, you know what, if you were to ask me 3 years ago or even 1 year ago, I would say the same thing. But what happens is, I found out that when you challenge yourself and when you're ready mentally, when your mentality is right, then you can do everything. So I couldn't do math or statistics before. Now I can do it because mentally I'm ready to do it. My background obviously is marketing and management and entrepreneurship since I started my businesses before I finished uni. Even when I was a teenager, I was actually experimenting with business ideas and projects. So I'm a people's person. I like to talk, I like to socialize, I like all this stuff, but I never considered myself as a numbers person or as a computers person. But over time, through my experience in business and through my maturity, maybe, or I wouldn't say maturity, but from my point of view, from my intuition tells me that mentality, the way I change my mentality, is important for me to be able to study data science and do statistics and do math and write some code and all this stuff. Now, what do you think about mentality? Let me know with a tweet at tdalis or with comment. But I do think you guys are going to have an amazing ideas and amazing opinions, so I'm looking forward to reading them. Now, let's move on with the main topic of the day. Guys, today's episode is going to be slightly longer than the previous episodes because I'm going to cover the topic I promised on Monday, which is the GDPR. And I did make some notes, and it's going to be a blog post on my post, and I'm going to write a LinkedIn post as well for the particular subject because I think it's a bit interesting for businesses to actually prepare and for when GDPR will take effect. And yes, I even have notes and points and stuff, so I try to be as precise as possible, and I try to be as helpful and provide you with as many useful information as possible without overdoing it. Now, just a general background for those of you who don't know. On Monday I talked about how the Federation of Small Businesses in the UK has made a study which suggests that only about 10% of the businesses are kind of ready for GDPR to take effect, which means more than 3.2 million businesses are not in the UK, across the UK, are not ready for GDPR. This is actually backed and is pretty much the same idea happens all over the EU, because the European Commission also says that most businesses in the EU are not ready, or they are very surprised that the GDPR is taking effect in May, basically on the 25th of May 2018, which is like in about 2 months from now. That means that probably people are afraid to actually go and read into the regulations and stuff because it sounds and it can be a bit too much, but it's easy to navigate through the headlines actually. And because it's easy to navigate through the headlines, it didn't take me that long to create notes. I sat down and read for a couple of hours, and I talked to some people as well in the industry and one of my lecturers, and I want to deliver what I've noted down and what I've understood and what my intuition tells me about what I think a business should do, which is not much in order to prepare for the GDPR taking effect. Now, so the EU General Data Protection Regulation, or as I've been calling it so far, GDPR, replaces the Data Protection Directive 95/46/EC. We don't need to remember that. And it was designed to harmonize data privacy laws across Europe. So far, the data privacy laws in Europe, they weren't harmonized. They weren't the same everywhere, yeah? To protect and empower all EU citizens' data privacy and to reshape the way organizations across the region approach data privacy. So that's kind of the general idea. Further, when I talk a bit further, you're going to realize, you're going to understand that it's not concerning only EU businesses. It does concern every business across the globe that does business in the EU or has customers in the EU. I will talk about it a bit further. Now, I have had, as I said earlier on, a couple of conversations with data professionals, but since we are not lawyers, the common theme that comes up when I talk to them about the GDPR and what do you know, what do you think we need to think about and care about, people appear to be just to say that they just know enough to help them stay out of trouble. So even data scientists are not very deeply knowledgeable about the regulations. I think the people who are more concerned about the details are lawyers, probably. So that's why. But if you know enough to stay out of trouble, it should be enough. And that's why I think this podcast, it will be almost enough for a lot of you. But I am suggesting, because that's my opinion and my intuition from my personal experiences, and which is not huge by any means, I'm suggesting that you go on and read what I've got, the accompanying text of this podcast, which includes some links for you to go and do some further readings. I'm going to repeat that later on because I think it's an important note. Now, one conversation that I had, it was interesting in particular, you know. I had a short chat with one of my lecturers actually, and here at Sterling University, and he suggested that I think of data as an individual economic market. That's a very interesting actually way of thinking of data. And when he said that, I was like, yeah, you're right. Think about it. Businesses have to remember that data is a currency. For example, some smart businesses, such as I categorize, that's my personal opinion, it doesn't mean it's a fact, I categorize companies like Google and Facebook as smart, and they're using data as a currency daily. For example, when you use Google Maps, yeah, you are using it for free. But what we don't usually associate it with is that we pay with our location data. Location data, then, Google can use them in order to target advertisements based on locations. So Google will push advertisements which are based on your location, and that's a currency for their clients, which are the advertisers. Yeah. Similar way, Facebook uses data, and a lot of other businesses. Since data is and can be used as an individual economic marketplace, it's fair to say that the EU new data protection regulations, or GDPR, are not too strict. Think about it again. They have to come in place for everyone's protection. since data actually can be used as a currency, we have to, protect the citizens and ourselves. Even your business produces a lot of data, and actually this regulation might be beneficial to your business as well. Now, yeah, it does bring a lot of work. Yes, it does. You have to worry about one more thing. It may be even one more expense, because as a small business, you don't really have the resources in-house. But if you are smart about it, data creates market opportunities for you as well. I think, you as a business, you can actually use data to make more money and balance the efforts and the money that you're going to put into, to invest to make sure that you use data responsibly, and that you don't get fines and stuff, which I'm going to talk in a moment about. Eventually, if you start thinking of data smartly, as like I air quote smartly all the time, it can help you even create new products. Whatever business you are, if you understand your customers, it can help you create new products, new services, which may generate more money. But at the same time, you have to make sure that you invest enough time and money to be using this data, making sure that you use the data responsibly. And of course, this is important for your customers to trust you as well. This brings me to the 3 key points that I think you need to think about and know about the data protection regulations, the GDPR. Now, point number 1, you need to understand that actually the EU is increasing territorial scope with that regulation, which means even if you are not an EU business, if you are not based in the EU, and if you are not processing EU citizen data in the EU, it doesn't matter. So it doesn't matter where your servers are, it doesn't matter where your team is, it doesn't matter. As long as you process EU citizens data, GDPR affects you. So if you are a company in America but you process EU citizens data, you're affected by the GDPR. You have to keep that in mind. Not only European companies need to worry about it, because I think in the news and everywhere I see it's about, European companies in the UK have to worry about it, European companies have to worry about it. No, but it's actually also other companies that European consumers use daily. Actually, we use services from Netflix, we use services from Amazon, we use services from other businesses that we don't even know who owns them. They're small businesses, but we buy products because of the internet from them, even through Amazon. So it's a lot to consider. If you are not based in the EU, you might need to consider GDPR. Now, the second point that I think is interesting and important is the penalties. So people ask, why should I bother with GDPR? I'm a small business. You're a small business, but other GDPR organizations in breach of GDPR can be fined up to 4% of annual global turnover of the business, obviously, or 20 million euros, and that's whichever is greater. So if you're a small business and you're not making 20 million euros with such a fine, you might go out of business, So you have to consider that. You have to keep it in mind that you're going to have a big problem if you don't invest now some time to just prepare yourself. And I'm going to talk about the preparation in a moment. So a company can be fined 2% for not having their records in order. So if you go and read Article 28 about how to have the records in order, if you don't have them in order, you can be fined up to 2% for just that. Not notifying the supervising authority a data subject about a breach, or not conducting impact assessment. So now in this sentence, I think it's important to note that these rules apply to both controllers and processors. So whoever manages or handles your data is also responsible. But that means, the cloud services which are not going to be exempt from GDPR, which I think they're ready already for that, because for them it's a business to manage their data. So if they're not ready, or if you're a cloud manager, a cloud company owner or manager, you're not ready for that, I think you're not doing your job correctly. I'm just saying. But again, based on my intuition, the key phrase for small businesses though here is the impact assessment. Generally, a small business doesn't process large amounts of data since they don't have the expertise to do so, yeah? But you are required to undergo impact assessment nevertheless when you are processing customer data systematically and extensively. But if you are not doing that, you still need to keep in mind that there is another key activity that requires you to have an impact assessment. And this activity is the use of CCTVs. So if you're using CCTVs and monitoring technology at your business, or let's say you are the owner of a coffee shop, which is not particularly huge, but you're using security cameras, you have to do this assessment. So not everybody has to. If you don't have security cameras or any other security mechanism, which means you probably don't process as much data, you might be flexible when it comes to the impact assessment. But if you do have CCTV, the impact assessment is necessary to do. And I do include a link below, so you can go and check about how to do the impact assessment in simple steps. Is this ico.org.uk has some interesting information for that, and I think you're going to find it useful and easy to do. So remember, impact assessment. If you don't do impact assessment, you're probably gonna have challenges, and these challenges might be, besides the fines, actually one of the things I didn't mention is that the EU and the authorities are allowed to share and publish the data, or how you use the data. If you're making a mistake and that's gonna affect your business image or reputation, so make sure that that doesn't happen. Even if you have the money, let's say 20 million euros to pay a fine, do you have the power to be humiliated, to not be trusted by your customers? I don't think any business has this power. So keep that in mind. And the third point from the 3 points that I noted down is consent. When you ask for consent, it needs to be straightforward and plain language. So far, you have the terms and conditions and stuff. Terms and conditions can be very long and worded in complicated ways, so people don't really read them. But from now on, when you ask for a consent, you have to make sure that it's plain English, let's say, or plain whatever language you're using, and it's very straightforward. Yeah, don't try to create loopholes in your consent and stuff. And actually, maybe even if you're a small business now and you have a website, make sure that you talk to your developers, or you go on your content management system if it's WordPress stuff, and make sure that you update your terms and conditions and make them simple. Or just go to a lawyer and check it out. Maybe the lawyer can help you. I don't know how much money they're going to charge, because they charge by the second or the minute or whatever they call it. But yeah, it's better to pay a lawyer a couple of £1,000, which I don't think is going to cost that much, maybe even less than £1,000, than actually being in breach of the GDPR. So these are the 3 main key points that you have to keep in mind for GDPR. As I said earlier on, I'm including a link to find out more on the official GDPR website. And please make sure you prepare your impact assessment before the 25th of May 2018 to be sure you are avoiding fines, audits, and investigations. keep in mind that the GDPR doesn't only require businesses to publish how they use customer personal data and what data they collect, but it goes a step further, providing citizens with a lot of personal rights on that data, such as the right to access it and the right to be forgotten. That means that you might be ready for the GDPR, and you might think that the authorities are not coming for you, but the citizens have a lot of rights right now on that data, on their personal data. So even if the authorities don't come to you, you might be in trouble if one of your customers actually files a complaint, because they have the right. So if someone asks for their data from you, you have to provide them. If someone asks you to delete their data from your database, you have to do that. It's their right. It's every citizen's right. So, but I'm not going to expand on this, because this episode is to help businesses to prepare for GDPR. So I'm not going to continue talking about the citizen rights right now. I might prepare a different episode for that, depending on the response I get on this episode. But yeah, let me know what you think. I hope you find this useful, and I hope you enjoy it, guys. And if you have any particular questions that you want me to investigate on that subject or any other data subject, let me know, and I will try my best to investigate it, ask people around, or make online research, and come up with a simple episode like that to help you guys out. Now, I do think that this episode is useful, and I hope you find it useful as well. Until the next time, have an awesome day full of love, passion, and compassion, and see you guys on Monday. Have an awesome weekend then. Bye-bye.